All right, so how long have we known each other? We've known each other, what, about over a year?
Yeah, we're going on a little over what year and a half, about a year and a half now.
So this is Forrest, and I remember the first day I met you, you and your significant other came walking into the rooms. We met in recovery, by the way. So, um, anyway, how long have you been sober?
I'm going on sober right about a year now. Yes, me and my significant other, as you want to call it, we came in broken and beat down. I tell you what, there had to be another solution besides the one we found there, and so we was looking for a different solution for our problem, which is the addiction to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, I remember y'all came in and you both. Now it's really cool because I found a relationship after being in recovery for I was almost a year. My sponsor told me I should wait a year, but I waited 9 months. So anyway, but
Hard to wait sometimes,
yeah,
especially to get that mind clear.
but you actually came into recovery in a relationship, and both of you were kind of in the same shape, and you were together. Now, all right. Tell the truth. Did you come in for you, for her, for both of you at the same time? How'd that?
Well, I came in for myself because I had pretty much destroyed our relationship. I had ran everybody off that cared about me. That my house was empty. Everybody moved out from around me, and but we both had issues that needed to be dealt with, and sure, a part of me for her as well, but it really I had to focus on myself at a certain point. I had been running a long time, and something had to give, or I was going to give.
Yeah. When well, from the beginning, like in my case, I drank a little bit as a teenager, but then I didn't drink from 19 to 30, which is weird, because that's usually when people are really kicking it off. But
Right, right.
but when did it start for you? When did like do you remember when you first took your first drink or drug or
Oh, absolutely. Now I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, but I like drugs a lot better. I tell you what, probably probably about 14 years old. We found me and my buddy at the time. My buddy's dad had some marijuana shipped in from Texas, so he had got into his mail, and so we uh, was trying to learn how to smoke marijuana. And probably by the end of that sack, we finally rolled a joint up. We wasted the majority of it, but we rolled a joint up, and right off the bat, I knew I loved marijuana. And that the feeling as a child of wanting to fit in. You want to fit in. You wanted to be with the cool kids. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to fit in, and I wanted to be with the cool kids. And it seemed like the cool kids were smoking and drinking, and that's what I wanted to do as well.
so at 14? So no, I'm mainly alcohol. I did some drugs too, but mine thing was alcohol. Now I just
Right?
believe addiction's addiction. I know
Addiction
it
is
hits it
addiction.
hits a little different, I guess. But now with alcohol, your tolerance level builds up. So when you know, what one shot of vodka did for me at 19, I mean, it would probably take 7 or 8 to get to that. Is that
Mm.
how it works with, like you started with pot?
Well, I
So
started with pot, but I hate to say, because I always denied that marijuana was a gateway drug, but it is because pot is like, okay, I enjoy pot. What else can I get my hands on? The next was LSD. I'm tripping in the classroom. Next thing I'm taking LSD in class. You're seeing Snoopy and Bugs Bunny. You think this is the greatest thing in the world. And it just progressed from there. Whatever I could get my hands on at the time, it didn't matter. I can't really say as one substance. It was just the changing of that mood, the changing of the way I felt. That's what I end up addicted to.
when that first day that you two came in, so what was that day? Do you remember what that day was like? Like your first day, that turning point where you're like, enough is enough. You're tapping out, in that first day of sobriety. Now, was that your first day of no drugs or alcohol? That day that I saw that you walked in.
Well, it's really hard to say for me because that first day we walked in, my girlfriend had been talking about coming in for a while. She was tired of drinking, and I was like, uh-huh. But I so I spent a little time in jail. Caught me some charges at the time. Like I said, I didn't think I was getting out of jail, to be honest, either. So, police ransacked the house, everything like that. They went through everything, but a drug addict can hide shit, and the police didn't do their job very well because they left drugs all over my place there, and so I got out. I went straight back to using, but I was ready to do something. I couldn't keep going like that, and so those first days I came in, mind's still distorted. You still have this ego you're trying to protect, everything like that. And for me personally, I hadn't been sober, so I didn't know what sober was per se. I couldn't tell you what sober was. It was new territory for me. Let's just say.
Do you want to? Now, you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to. Okay,
Sure,
of course.
sure.
But do you want? Because I know a lot about your story. You know a lot about my story. Do you want to talk about total abstinence and how there was a point where you were like had to get honest with yourself that you weren't totally abstinent, and then what it meant to become totally abstinent off of everything, and then you reset.
Yes. So that's a good subject there. So, okay, we stop using drugs and everything. This is me. I stopped using drugs, everything like that. But I was on so many substances, pills, cocaine, whatever the substance was, that hell, I even looked at some of these drugs I was taking as just dietary supplements, and that turns out, that's not the case. Anything that changes your mood is a drug per se. So I had to get honest with myself. And honest with myself's a relative term at the time. This is about 3 months in, and so yeah, I'm stopped using heavy drugs, hard drugs, whatever you want to say. I'm not using that, but I'm still taking drugs. I was taking kratom at the time, and kratom it's a natural substance, but it has opiate-like effects. As if you've ever taken kratom, you know what it is. I end up getting popped on a urine test on it. So I was like, man, I gotta protect myself. Some of these AA people, they gonna tell my probation on me or something like that. So I got honest to a extent. I quit taking kratom. I restarted my program. And it was the best thing I did, because like I said, I didn't know what honesty was at the time either. It's slowly God starts revealing these things through working these steps. And yeah, I'm glad that I was trying to protect myself. And coming in, that's what I was trying to do anyway. I was trying to protect myself because still a selfish person. I didn't want to die, so I had to do self-preservation. And thank God I did. Thank God I started doing what was suggested.
Was there? Because I know. I mean, I've held a gun to my head, staring at myself in the mirror, crying, drunk, and I had my 9mm right here, and I don't want to get too morbid, but this is reality.
Right.
We hit bottom, but that wasn't even my bottom. My bottom was more emotional, and I just was tired. I was just tired, man. I was just tired. But so do you remember?
Right.
Was there like a boom? Your bottom? Was there a turning point or a bottom that you hit?
I've had so many bottoms there, Jeff.
Moving target.
Huh?
Moving target.
And maybe I can't say I was suicidal, but I had suicidal tendencies, and I would manipulate situations as if I was suicidal to try to get favor or manipulate situations like that because as an addict, we're delusional, we're selfish people. And we're gonna manipulate any situation we can. And like I said, I did a lot of things I never said I'd do. And suicidal tendencies can come in a lot of form. And it is self-hatred. Just the actions, just the things I was doing were suicidal in nature, you know.
Did you ever think you would go to that point of being suicidal to the life you have today?
No, the life I have today is a whole nother story. You know, we ain't even dubbed into the life we have today. You know, so I'm a little over a year sober now, and man, what a difference that makes! What a difference in following suggestions and working these steps and finding a sponsor makes. You know, it's very important to do that if you want to find that peace and serenity. I would suggest you take suggestions.
Yeah.
You know.
So, it's called Alcoholics Anonymous, but what that really means, just in case people are saying, well, why are you talking about it? Because it's anonymous. Well, it's anonymous because we don't talk about other people in the rooms. We don't mention their names. We keep them anonymous. But what we do ourselves, we live in a free world, so we can talk about how we got help. So,
right.
And I know Forrest is more than willing to and happy to talk about that. So tomorrow, was it like 3 weeks ago you picked up a year officially, and then tomorrow night
Complete abstinence.
Yeah, complete abstinence.
Right. No
And,
dietary supplements.
yeah, which means that freed up his head more too. Because I remember when you came to me after this few months, and you said, I wasn't completely abstinent. From
Right.
everything. And when you started, I noticed I started seeing a change in you even more so, because we were already seeing a big change in you and your girlfriend. And but you're a different human being.
I am a different human being today. It's because I did what was suggested, though. I tell you.
What do you think the biggest lie you told yourself during years of addiction?
I don't know. Everything was a lie. Life was a lie. But the biggest that you can't be successful. That that you have to have something. And like I said, that steps back to when I started using. All my heroes use drugs. When and this goes into high school as well. When I started using drugs, my thinking was, why do I need high school? I'm just going to go to work anyway. And so that's what I did. And when I dropped out of high school there, my mom went up there and helped me drop out of high school. She told me, I'm a grown man now, it's time to move out. Now, I'm 16 years old, so I got to get a job. I go to construction work, and everybody on that job's using drugs, methamphetamines, marijuana pills. And so I thought, as a young age, I thought this is normal. This is what people do. Drugs are what people do in some shape or form. Alcohol, drugs, whatever. This is how people live, and it's just you can either handle your substances or you can't. Which one, and that's what I thought for a long time. That and people, I'd watch people, and I could handle it for better than most of my friends could. That's the thing, and so people's parents would look at me like, oh yeah, you're doing good and everything, but they didn't realize that I'm doing just as much. I'm just kind of keeping it together a little bit better because I'm going to work and everything. I'm functioning, and then my friends start dying, and it's like, okay, well, at least I'm not dying yet. I still got it together, and this goes on for decades, and then more of my friends die, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and then one day you look and you're all out of friends. They're all dead. And you've built a world you can't trust anymore. You can't trust people. You can't bring new people into your life because you're living a whole nother way, And so, when I came into AA, it was hard for me. And I share this. It was hard for me to trust people. I couldn't trust anyone. But I was willing to do whatever it took to get sober at the time. And I didn't exactly know what that meant. But I just kept coming back to the rooms, and I've went through these rooms before, and it didn't set with me. I didn't want to give up. Then you have to give up certain things. You have to let go of certain things, and you have to find a higher power. That's the only thing that's going to set you free from these crutches. And these crutches can be more than just drugs. It can be a variety of things that you just can't let go of. You have to let go of certain things, and the more you let go of, the more you grow.
You've mentioned God a few times. Did you ever even think about God prior to like a year and a half ago?
I did. I did. You know, I was always searching through for God through hallucinogens. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I was doing that,
Yeah.
and I pray to a certain extent, and I try with self will to stop using, and I pray, just what they call the foxhole prayers, Jeff.
Mm.
Just get me through the day, and I get through the day, but I would trade one substance for another, and it just never worked. The only thing will work is these 12 steps, I do believe.
I remember when I think about that because I grew up in church. You hear people say that, oh, I grew up in church. Well, I did. And I actually went to Christian schools from
Mm.
kindergarten through Bible college. But all of that was more of a legalistic type thing, and I had no
Hmm.
relationship with God. And
Right.
it actually took me going to AA. Now,
Mm.
AA is not a Christian organization,
Right.
but it's the what part of the program, part of the steps is realizing that I need something bigger than me
Mm.
to fix my problem.
Absolutely.
And when I realized that there has to be, I damn sure believed in evil.
Hmm.
I knew evil was
Evil's
there,
out
and
there.
so I did think there's got to be something. There's got to be something bigger than me.
Absolutely.
So all that teaching, all those church services, all that schooling, 13, 14 years of school in a Christian school, I had zero really, it was all passing a test
Right.
is all it was.
Right.
So
Uh,
when I realized that, and I actually, because when my prayers prior to a couple years ago when I got sober, I prayed about two things
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
prior to getting sober.
What was that?
I prayed that God would keep my heart beating.
Okay.
Don't don't let me die, because there was many times I thought I was about to die.
Mm.
And then the other half, I was praying He'd take my life.
Man, I tell you, that's just a
It
terrible
was
way to live, isn't
I
it?
know, and that's what it was. So now prayer is a lot much more different.
Prayer is different for me as well. I try not to be selfish in my prayers. But the one thing when you're coming in there, you got to be selfish, and you got to be selfish and not selfish at the same time. And it's a hard thing to grasp, at the time, and it comes more revealed as time goes. I by no means have this, but I do have a good foundation to stand on.
Some people don't understand when we say like recovery is the most important thing in my life. That seems kind of harsh when you first hear about it, and it goes along with what you just said. Because if I'm not working on myself and working with my relationship with God, praying, meditating, all that, then I'm no good as a husband. I
Mm.
am no good as a son. I am no good as a friend. I am no good as a business person. So I have to keep recovery first. So that makes a ton of sense.
I agree. And I didn't know what recovery was. I thought it was just stop using. But no, it's learning how to deal with all these little problems that we used to not be able to deal with before, And that's a big deal, because any little problem that used to occur with me, I couldn't handle. I couldn't cope with it. It was too much time to get high. And that goes into everything. I thought I heard you talking about this yesterday, Jeff. Get high or get drunk or whatever it is, alcohol in any form. When you're good, when you're bad, when it victories, defeats, all that. And that's where the problem comes in, and that's where recovery comes into play. Is we learn to deal with this stuff. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't have coping skills for real. My coping skill was numb out anything, any emotion, and I did that successfully. And that brings me up to another subject. Those first few months, when you when you start dealing with all these emotions, it's like, wow, it's tough. If you can get through those first probably 6 months, 6 to 9 months, really, your brain starts firing right. You start being able to understand emotion. You start being able to cope with things better. But it's tough at first. You can get through that first little bit there, because it was a roller coaster ride for me.
And you turn a corner. You turn a definite corner at a certain point. And I think it's different for any. It took me about 6 months to really get somewhat loosely,
Right.
you know, and but you turn a corner and then all of a sudden, I mean, we talked about it this morning. Um, I wish I could pinpoint it of when it happens, but at some point, I'm not obsessed with drinking vodka anymore.
Man, what a
And
wonderful
that,
thing.
man, that's is incredible. So we've talked about defeat, experience. Now
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about strength and hope. So I want
Mm.
one of the things that, well, I want to talk about your relationship last. So let's talk about business. I know you've been in the same business for a lot of years, right?
Yes,
So
I have.
so you're an expert at what you do,
I hate to
and
call
I've
myself
seen your
expert.
work. I've seen your work. You're one of the best that, definitely the best that I know, but I've seen your work. So, and you were
Now,
successful.
you're one of the best I know, Jeff. I tell
Oh,
you
come
what,
on.
you're one of the best I know.
so so I also know that you did very well prior to being sober.
Mm.
You you
That's
you made some money.
that's to be that's subjective right there. Yeah, oh, I made some money, that's for sure. But you know what I did? I stuck it right up a hog's ass. That's exactly what I do with my money. I I tell you, that goes into something else though too. Getting sober and following these steps and these directions and everything, and asking for God's help and everything. I realized something that and all this money I made prior to recovery, all this money I wasted on drugs and things I didn't need, material, I just wasted it because and that goes back to the suicidal thing. I wanted to spend my money because I didn't think I'd be around to enjoy it. It's like, oh, I didn't want to be buried with my money. I'm gonna spend it right now. I tell you. Then I started recovering. And I'm like, man, I don't need this. I don't need that. And it's like I haven't had the successful years as I had prior to recovery, but I can tell you what, I have a lot more money in my pocket now.
Nice.
Well, imagine that.
Yeah.
I was able to pay off all my rehabs. I was able, to fix my teeth. And that's another thing. I wouldn't fix my teeth. I had money, and my teeth were rotting out of my head
I
from all the
remember when you
drugs.
fixed your teeth.
Yeah, all the drugs, and I wouldn't fix them because I didn't have enough money. But always had money for drugs and alcohol. I can tell you that. And it's a wonderful thing to find out what we was dealing with it. Those promises are coming true. No more economic insecurities. I tell you what, Jeff. Not to say they won't come because money is a fiat thing,
We're
but
able to deal with life as life happens.
exactly,
Where
exactly.
before we had to rely, speak for myself, I had to rely on a substance to cope. We were talking about coping mechanisms.
Mm,
I Life hit me, no matter what life hit me with, I was
mm-hmm.
drinking.
Right, right.
So anyway, we kind of started with relationship, and I want to circle back around to that as we wind it up. But what is personal relationships like with you now versus compare it to when before sobriety and recovery?
I tell you what, I have friends in recovery now. I I am not insecure about my relationships. I don't play out scenarios in my head anymore. Imagine that. I used to play out these crazy scenarios that made absolutely no sense, and then I'd fester on them, and then I'd get angry over these scenarios that were untrue to begin with. I That's just ridiculous. I don't do that anymore. I'm not resentful anymore. If I even sense a resentment, I go ahead and correct the problem as it comes, and that's the part of recovery. Relationships are great. I no longer argue for the sake of argue. When I started recovering, I realized that I blamed everybody else for the drama. I realized I was the problem. I'm the problem. It's like, oh, I'm the one stirring up all this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was. And I can realize that now, and I don't do it anymore. What a wonderful thing. I don't stress. I used to stress that there's no tomorrow. I used to stress about this and that and how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to do that. I don't care. Whatever got to be done, I'm going to do it just for the day, Jeff.
I think about
I'm addicted to sobriety is what it is.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I think about how we know people that are out there. Of course, we know people who are in the rooms. We know when I'm saying the rooms, I'm talking about recovery. And then I can't imagine. To me, I can't imagine trying to be sober and my partner, my wife, is still out there drinking.
Not gonna
That's
happen.
got to be just hell on earth when you're going down two paths. And what I think is incredible and wonderful is how you and your girlfriend came in together. Over a year later.
What a wonderful time.
You are both in there together. She's got about the same time you do, in full.
She has a little bit more time than I do.
In sobriety. Well, that's because you got honest with that other stuff.
That's it.
And
honesty is key.
Yeah, and your boat today, you are looked at in our community as like a power couple.
That's what I'm talking about.
A sober power couple, and I just think that's amazing, man. So, well, let's wind this up, dude. Let's just end it with, if you could think of one thing, or as many as you want to talk about, but what are you grateful for the most? I know that's a
there's so many things to be grateful for, though, Jeff. I tell you what, but I am grateful. I'm grateful for the program of AA. I'm grateful for hitting so many bottoms and getting tired of hitting bottoms. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I follow suggestions. And if you're out there wondering, can I do this? Recovery is possible. In our group, we have so many people that have time on their hands that have experienced it. And I tell you what, you don't have to go down the same path they do. You can listen to these people's stories and take, if you're really listening, you can get something out of it to where you don't have to go down that same path. And, recovery is, like I said again, recovery is possible. And I'm grateful that I did what I did. I'm grateful I got a sponsor. Jeff is my sponsor here. Jeff made time for me. Today I'm sponsoring people. I never saw that coming. I really didn't. If you're in these meetings, if you're thinking about getting sober, drugs or alcohol, whatever, do it. Do it now. Don't wait till it's too late. Don't wait till you got a gun in your mouth. Don't wait till you OD'd and dead on the floor. Don't do it. Just do it now. It's time to do something. What better time than now?
And if we low life drunks and addicts can do it, you and me, anybody can do it, right?
Anybody can do it.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you having me.
All right.